The darkness between stars held secrets. In a region of space so remote that no trade routes crossed it, a fleet waited. 300 ships hung in the void, their hulls bearing marks that no living being in the galaxy would recognize. Strange symbols covered their surfaces, ancient words from a dead language, a forgotten people. Admiral Caney Theron stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, the flagship of what his people called the Remnant Fleet. He was tall and lean, his body adapted for the harsh gravity of their exile world. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, a modification made generations ago. Around him, officers moved with perfect coordination, barely speaking. They didn't need to. The neural links allowed them to share thoughts faster than words. "Status report," Caney said aloud. He still preferred speaking when he could. It reminded him they were still human, despite everything they had become. "All ships ready, Admiral," replied Commander Nash. "The crews have been briefed. They know what we're returning to do." Caney nodded slowly. His hand moved across the console and a hologram flickered to life before him. It showed a blue and green world, beautiful and full of life, Earth, home, a place he had never seen except in recordings that were older than his entire civilization's exile. "Show me the last transmission," he commanded quietly. The hologram changed. Now it showed the same world but different. Massive ships surrounded it. Ships built by the Galactic Council. Beams of terrible light lanced down from orbit. The oceans boiled. The continents burned. Cities that had stood for thousands of years vanished in seconds. 12 billion voices screamed and then fell silent forever. The transmission ended with a single message broadcast by the Council. "Species human has been classified as evolutionarily dangerous. Threat eliminated. This sector is now quarantined." Caney had watched this recording 10,000 times. Every person in the fleet had. It was shown to children when they came of age. It was their history, their wound, their reason for existing. 4,000 years, Caney whispered. 4,000 years we've waited, built, and prepared. Today we remind the galaxy that humanity doesn't die easily. Behind him, Dr. Sarah Voss approached. She was older than Caney, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She carried the weight of being their chief historian, the keeper of all human memory since the Exodus. "Admiral, I need to speak with you before we proceed," she said softly. Caney turned to face her. "Is something wrong?" "I've been reviewing the old records again. The testimonies from the survivors who escaped Earth." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Not all of the Council species voted for our destruction. There were 3 who opposed it. They argued for mercy, for giving humanity a chance. The records say those species were removed from the Council afterwards." "Removed?" Caney's voice carried an edge. "Purged. Destroyed, just like us. Or at least silenced so completely they might as well be dead." Sarah's expression was troubled. "What I'm saying is that not everyone in the galaxy wanted us dead. Some tried to save us." Caney was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "That doesn't change what happened. Earth burned. Our people died. If those species suffered for trying to help us, then that's another crime the Council must answer for." Sarah nodded, but Caney could see she wasn't satisfied with his answer. He understood her concern. Revenge was what had sustained them through 4,000 years of exile, but revenge was a fire that could consume everything if they let it. The bridge doors opened with a hiss, and Captain Jax Moreno strode in. He commanded the Wraith Corps, the fleet's elite strike force. Where Caney was measured and thoughtful, Jax was pure intensity. His body was more heavily modified than most, built for combat. Scars crossed his face, marks from battles against the hostile creatures on their exile world. "Admiral, my teams are ready," Jax reported. "Just give the word and we'll paint the Council's precious stations with their own blood." "Patience, Captain," Caney replied. "We're not raiders. We're executioners delivering a judgment 4,000 years overdue." "Executioners, then." Jax grinned without humor. "Even better." Caney turned back to the main display. It showed a star map of known space. The Galactic Council controlled the bright center, thousands of species living under their law. Out on the rim in the dark areas, that's where humanity had fled. That's where they had survived. The story of those first years of exile lived in every human's memory, passed down through genetic memory enhancement. 50,000 survivors had escaped Earth's destruction in colony ships, never meant for such long journeys. They had run until their fuel was gone, until their ships were falling apart. until they had no choice but to land on the first marginally habitable world they found. That world, Prometheus, had been a nightmare. Toxic atmosphere, crushing gravity, radiation levels that would kill an unmodified human in days. But they had no choice. They adapted or died, most died. But some lived. And those survivors changed themselves, modified their genetics, merged with their AI systems, did whatever was necessary to endure. Children were born who could breathe the poisoned air. Generations passed, each one stronger, more resilient than the last. They built underground cities. They developed technology the Council had never imagined, fusing organic and synthetic in ways that blurred the line between human and machine. They became something new, but they never forgot what they had been. Navigation, plot the jump course, Caney ordered. We're going to the Kelvani sector first. It's remote enough that we can test the Council's response time. Course plotted. Admiral, the navigator responded immediately. All ships, prepare for jump, Caney announced on the fleet-wide channel. Remember, we are the voice of 12 billion dead. We are the children of Earth, and today we return to make the galaxy remember what it did to us. 300 ships powered up their jump drives simultaneously, energy built around them, tearing holes in normal space. The technology was human, refined over thousands of years, faster and more efficient than anything the Council possessed. Caney took one last look at the hologram of Earth before it disappeared. His grandmother had been among the original survivors, one of the 50,000. She had died decades ago, but before she passed, she had taken his hand and whispered, "Promise me you'll go back. Promise me they'll pay." "I promise, grandmother," Caney whispered to the empty air. "We all promise." The fleet jumped. Reality twisted around them as they crossed light years in seconds. When they emerged, they were no longer in the dark reaches of unexplored space. They were in Council territory, the heart of galactic civilization, and they had come for blood. Caney stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his officers checked systems and scanned for targets. Everything was proceeding perfectly. 4,000 years of planning were about to become reality. "Admiral, we're detecting a Council patrol station ahead," Commander Nash reported. "It's a standard monitoring outpost. Minimal defenses. They haven't detected us yet." "Good," Caney replied. "Open a channel. All frequencies." It's time the galaxy heard from the dead. The communications officer nodded and activated the transmission array. Caney cleared his throat, about to speak words that would echo across the stars. "Attention, Galactic Council," his voice carried across space, cold and clear. "This is Admiral Caney Theron of the Human Remnant Fleet. 4,000 years ago you tried to destroy us. You burned our world. You murdered billions. You thought you erased humanity from existence." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "You were wrong. We survived. We adapted. We remembered. And now we've come home to collect what you owe us. Blood for blood. Justice for genocide. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Caney looked at his crew, seeing his own determination reflected in their faces. "Take us forward," he commanded. "Let's remind them what humans can do." The remnant fleet advanced into Council space, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Councillor Vrentak stood in the command center of the Council's security headquarters, his forearms crossed in a gesture of deep concern. He was a Zeltharian, an insectoid species that had served the Council for 3,000 years. His compound eyes could process information faster than most species could think. And right now, every data stream he monitored showed the same impossible thing. Humans. Alive. And broadcasting across every communication channel in Council space. "This is impossible," hissed Minister Qual beside him. "The humans were eliminated 4 millennia ago. Every ship, every colony, every trace. We made certain?" "Apparently we did not," Vrentak replied coldly. His mandibles clicked in agitation. "These transmissions are authentic. The encryption matches old human protocols, and the ships our sensors are detecting use human design philosophy." The command center was in chaos. Operators from dozens of species worked frantically at their stations. The massive holographic display in the center of the room showed the same message playing over and over. It was a recording, grainy and ancient, from Earth's final moments. A human woman appeared in the hologram, her face streaked with tears. Behind her, cities burned. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, broadcasting from Beijing. The Council's ships are destroying everything. They're not even giving us a chance to surrender. Billions are dead. If anyone hears this, if anyone survives, please remember. Remember that humanity existed. Remember that we were here. Remember what they did to us. The transmission dissolved into static, then repeated from the beginning. Every screen in Council space was showing this. Personal communicators, public displays, military channels, everything. The humans had infiltrated their entire network simultaneously and started broadcasting their history, the history the Council had tried to erase. How did they breach our security? Frentak demanded. We don't know, sir, a technician responded nervously. The intrusion is unlike anything we've encountered. It's as if the network itself is helping them. Our AI systems aren't even recognizing it as an attack. Frentak's eyes narrowed. That was interesting, and deeply troubling. Across the Council capital on the planet Zenthos Prime, a young diplomat named Liz sat in her apartment, staring at her communication screen in shock. She was a Trellin, a species known for their diplomatic skills and their commitment to truth. She had served the Council faithfully for 15 years, believing it stood for peace and justice. Now she watched a human child crying as buildings collapsed around him. She watched soldiers evacuating families who would never escape. She watched an entire world die. This can't be real, she whispered. The Council would never do this. There must be an explanation. But the recordings kept playing. Different perspectives, different cities, all showing the same horror. An extinction event carried out with cold precision by Council warships. Liz accessed the Council's historical archives, using her diplomatic credentials. She searched for anything about humanity, about Earth, about what had happened 4,000 years ago. The official record said almost nothing. A brief note. Species designated human planet Earth classified as Class 5 threat to galactic stability. Appropriate action taken. File sealed by Council mandate, that was all. As if billions of lives could be summarized in 3 sentences. She dug deeper, using access codes that she probably shouldn't have. Finally, she found classified files from the era of Earth's destruction. Her hands trembled as she opened them. The Council meeting transcripts were there. She read in growing horror. Humanity's rate of technological advancement is unprecedented, one counselor had argued. In just 5,000 years, they've gone from primitive tool use to faster-than-light travel. If we allow them to continue, they will surpass us within centuries. They will become competitors, rivals, perhaps even threats. Another voice. But they've shown no hostility toward the Council. They're curious, energetic, yes, but not dangerous. Not yet, the first voice countered. We cannot wait until they are dangerous. We must act while we still can. This is not cruelty. This is prevention. This is survival. The vote had been recorded. 53 species voted to destroy humanity. 3 voted against. Liz noted which 3 species had opposed the genocide. She checked current records. All 3 of those species were now classified as extinct or relocated to unknown sectors. They had been erased too, just for trying to save humanity. Liz felt sick. The Council she served, the organization she believed in, had committed genocide not out of defense but out of fear and jealousy. The transmission on her screen changed. Now it showed a new message live, not recorded. A human man appeared wearing a military uniform unlike anything in current galactic design. His eyes had an odd glow to them, and when he spoke, his voice carried absolute conviction. People of the galaxy, I am Admiral Kane Theron. For 4,000 years, the Council has hidden the truth about humanity. They feared us, so they tried to kill us all. They failed. We survived. We endured. And now we have returned. He paused, his glowing eyes seeming to look directly at each viewer. We do not seek to conquer you. We seek justice against those who committed genocide. If your species values truth and justice, stand aside. If you support the Council's actions, then you choose to share their fate. The transmission ended, and moments later, alerts screamed across every military channel. At Kelvanis Station, a Council patrol outpost, Commander Rix had been watching the transmissions with confusion and growing dread. He was a career officer, 40 years of service, and he had never heard of humans before today. Sir, sensors are detecting multiple unknown contacts, his scanner operator called out. They just appeared on the edge of the system. 30 ships. No, wait, more are appearing. 60, 100. Battle stations, Rix ordered. Send a distress signal to Fleet Command. Request immediate reinforcement. The human ships moved with frightening precision. They accelerated faster than Council ships could, their formation perfect. As they approached, Rix got his first clear scan of them. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They blended organic curves with geometric precision, as if grown rather than built. Energy readings showed technology that shouldn't be possible. Open a channel, Rix commanded. Unidentified vessels, this is Council Patrol Station Kelvanis. You are in violation of Council space. Identify yourself and state your intentions. The response was immediate. A human face appeared on his screen. A woman with similar glowing eyes to the Admiral. Station Kelvanis, we are the human remnant fleet. You will surrender your station and evacuate immediately. You have 10 minutes. This is your only warning. We will not surrender to terrorists, Rix replied, though his voice shook slightly. This station is under Council protection. The Council's protection means nothing anymore, the human woman said flatly. 9 minutes, 30 seconds. We advise you to use that time wisely. Rix cut the transmission. All weapons prepare to fire. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. The human ships stopped advancing. They simply hovered at the edge of weapons range, waiting. The countdown continued in Rix's mind. Every instinct he had screamed that this was a mistake, that his station couldn't win this fight. Sir, the crew is requesting permission to evacuate, his second-in-command said quietly. They've seen the broadcasts. They know what the Council did. Some of them don't want to die protecting it. Rix looked around his bridge. Young officers, veteran crew members, all looking at him with fear and uncertainty. He thought about the recordings he'd seen. Thought about billions of humans dying for no reason except that they were too successful, too threatening. Stand down weapons, he ordered finally. Begin evacuation. We're leaving, sir? His weapons officer looked shocked. You heard me. I won't die for a lie. The Council committed genocide. If these humans want revenge, they've earned the right to it. Within 8 minutes, every person on Kelvanis station was aboard evacuation shuttles, fleeing toward the nearest Council world. The human ships didn't pursue them. They simply moved in, attached devices to the station's hull, and destroyed it with controlled explosions. The message was clear. This was a military campaign, not mindless destruction. The humans were disciplined, purposeful, deadly. Back on Zenthos Prime, Councillor Vrentak watched the destruction of Kelvanis Station with cold fury. The humans had struck their first blow, and they had done it with humiliating ease. Issue a full mobilization order, he commanded. Every fleet, every garrison, every defensive station. The humans think they can challenge the Council? We will show them the same lesson we taught them 4,000 years ago. This time we will be thorough. But even as he gave the orders, Vrentak felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine fear. The humans had survived 4,000 years in exile and returned stronger. What else had they learned? What else had they become? Across the galaxy, species watched the broadcasts and whispered to each other. Some spoke of humanity with sympathy, others with fear. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed. The humans were back, and they had come for revenge. The ship fell through the poisoned sky of Prometheus, trailing smoke and fire. Inside, a young woman named Kaya Theron held her daughter close, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. This was 4,000 years ago, in the first desperate days after humanity's exodus from Earth. We're going to survive this, Kaya whispered. I promise, sweetness. We're going to survive. The crash was brutal. The ship hit ground and tore itself apart across kilometers of toxic wasteland. Kaya's pod survived, but hundreds of others didn't. She crawled from the wreckage, her daughter crying in her arms, and saw hell itself waiting for her. Prometheus was barely a planet. The atmosphere was thick with sulfur compounds. Radiation from the nearby pulsar washed over everything in deadly waves. Gravity was 30% higher than Earth normal. It was the kind of world that colony scouts would mark with red flags and move on from immediately. It was all they had. Dr. Sarah Voss stood in the archives of the Prometheus, reviewing these ancient recordings. She had watched them thousands of times, but they never got easier. The early years of exile were horrors that no human should have had to endure. 90% of the original survivors died in the first 5 years on Prometheus. They died from radiation sickness, from the toxic air, from the crushing gravity, from starvation when the supplies ran out and nothing Earth-like would grow in the poison soil. They died from despair and from the civil wars that erupted when people fought over the last remaining resources. But 10% lived. And those survivors did the unthinkable. They changed themselves. The colony ships had carried genetic modification equipment, meant for minor adaptations to new worlds. The survivors used it for radical transformations. They rewrote their own DNA, experimenting on themselves because they had no other choice. They enhanced bone density to handle the gravity, modified their lungs to filter the toxic air, altered their cells to resist the radiation. Most experiments killed the subjects, but some worked, and the ones that worked were passed on to the next generation. Sarah closed the historical files and returned to the present. She walked through the corridors of the flagship, passing crew members who were the result of 4,000 years of forced evolution. They were still human, but they were also something more, stronger, more resilient, adapted to survive anywhere. On the bridge, Admiral Caney studied tactical displays showing Council fleet movements. The remnant fleet had been striking supply lines for weeks now, hitting soft targets and disappearing before reinforcements arrived. The Council was responding with fury, mobilizing their military on a scale not seen in centuries. "Status report," Caney requested. 17 successful raids in the past month, Commander Nash replied. "We've destroyed supply depots on 6 worlds, captured 3 data facilities, and eliminated numerous patrol groups. Council response time is improving, though. They're learning to predict our movements." "That's expected," Caney nodded. "They have superior numbers. We have superior technology and motivation. The question is whether quality can overcome quantity." The bridge doors opened and Captain Jax Moreno entered, his armor still scarred from the latest ground assault. Behind him, a small figure followed, hands bound. It was Ambassador Liss, the Trellan diplomat who had been broadcasting messages calling for the Council to acknowledge their crimes against humanity. "Admiral, this is Ambassador Liss," Jax announced. "She surrendered herself at our forward outpost on Kepler 7. Says she has information." Liss stepped forward, her violet eyes meeting Kane's glowing ones without fear. "Admiral Theron, I've spent the past 3 weeks investigating what the Council did to your people. I've accessed classified archives, interviewed historians, and pieced together the truth." She took a breath. "I want to help you. The Council lied to all of us. They committed genocide, and they've been covering it up for millennia. Why should I trust you?" Caney asked directly. "You're a Council diplomat. This could be a trick." "Because I brought this." Liz produced a data chip, complete records of the Council session where they voted to destroy Earth. Transcripts, vote counts, and most importantly, the names of 3 species who opposed the genocide. The Kelnar, the Yith, and the Draven. "Do you know what happened to them, Admiral?" Caney was silent. "They were systematically destroyed," Liz continued, her voice shaking with anger. "The Council didn't just fear humanity. They feared anyone who wouldn't go along with their decision. Those 3 species were erased from galactic records just like yours. I can give you the locations of their last known colonies. Some may have survivors just like you." Dr. Voss moved forward, taking the data chip. "If this is accurate, it changes everything. We're not the only victims. The Council has been doing this for thousands of years." "Exactly," Liz confirmed. "I've found records of 17 species classified as threats and subsequently eliminated over the past 10,000 years. Humanity is just the most recent, and the only one that survived to come back." Caney processed this information. His hand unconsciously touched the neural interface at his temple, connecting him briefly to the fleet's shared consciousness. Thousands of human minds considered the data simultaneously, analyzing implications, strategic options, and moral questions. "If what you say is true, then the Council is more corrupt than we imagined," Caney said finally. "But it also means our war isn't just about revenge for Earth. It's about preventing this from happening to anyone else." "That's what I'm hoping you'll understand," Liss replied. "I'm not asking you to forgive the Council. I'm asking you to help reform it, to make it something worthy of the ideals it claims to represent," Jax scoffed. "Reform? They tried to exterminate us. The only appropriate response is to return the favor." "Captain Moreno makes a valid point," Caney said quietly. "Why should we show mercy when none was shown to us?" "Because if you become like them, then they win," Liss answered. "They feared humanity would be violent and destructive. Don't prove them right." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Commander Nash checked his displays and his expression darkened. Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors detect a massive council fleet converging on the Nexus Prime system. It's where our supply convoy is scheduled to meet. How many ships? Caney demanded. Over 3,000. It's everything they have in this sector. They're planning to trap and destroy our fleet. It's a trap, Jack stated the obvious. They've figured out our supply routes. Dr. Voss looked at Liss. Did you know about this? No, Liss insisted. I came to you before any of this was planned. But it makes sense. General Vormak is commanding the Council's military response now. He's their best strategist. Caney studied the tactical display. The Council fleet was massive, overwhelming. If the remnant fleet engaged them directly, it would be a slaughter. Humanity could be destroyed again, this time permanently. We have two choices, he said slowly. We can abandon the supply convoy and retreat, which means leaving thousands of our people to die. Or we can spring the trap ourselves and hope we're clever enough to survive it. There might be a third option, Dr. Voss interjected. We could reveal the full extent of what we've become. Show them why they should fear us. Caney understood what she meant. The remnant fleet had kept their greatest adaptation secret until now. 4,000 years of evolution had given humanity something unique in the galaxy. The ability to merge consciousness with their AI systems, creating a hybrid intelligence that could think and act as one organism. The collective, Caney whispered. You want to fully activate the collective protocol. It's what we designed it for, Voss replied. When individual survival becomes impossible, the whole must act as one. Every human, every ship, every system linked together. We become a single entity with the combined intelligence and coordination of our entire species. Jax nodded enthusiastically. I've trained for this. My whole unit has. We can fight as one organism. The Council has never faced anything like it. But if we do this, there's no going back, Caney warned. Individual identity will be subsumed into the whole. We'll stop being separate people and become something entirely new. Is that what we want? To sacrifice what makes us human to survive? The question hung in the air. 4,000 years ago, their ancestors had faced a similar choice, change or die. They had chosen to change, to adapt, to survive at any cost. Now history was repeating itself. Ambassador Liss watched the humans with fascination and horror. She could see them communicating through their neural links, having entire conversations in microseconds. They were deciding their species' fate right now in a way no other species could match. Finally, Caney spoke. We didn't survive 4,000 years just to surrender now. If the Council wants to destroy us again, they'll learn that humanity is far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Activate the collective. We'll meet them at Nexus Prime, and we'll show them exactly what we've become. The order went out across the fleet. In every ship, humans felt the neural links activate fully for the first time. Individual thoughts began to merge. Separate identities started to blur. 300 ships and 40,000 humans became something unprecedented in galactic history. A unified consciousness with the singular purpose of survival. The remnant fleet set course for Nexus Prime. General Vormak watched his tactical display with satisfaction. 3,000 council ships surrounded the Nexus Prime system in perfect formation. It was the largest military operation in centuries, and it would crush the human threat once and for all. Status of the trap? He demanded from his flagship's bridge. All ships in position, General, his aide reported. The human convoy is approaching the meeting point. When their fleet arrives to escort them, we'll have them surrounded completely. Vormak was a Kryn, a species known for strategic thinking and ruthless efficiency. He had studied what little information existed about the original human wars before Earth's destruction. He knew humans were clever and dangerous. That's why he had devoted overwhelming force to this operation. The humans thought they could challenge the Council with guerrilla tactics, Vormak mused. But guerrilla wars only work when you can avoid direct confrontation. We forced them into exactly that. Today we finish what the Council started 4,000 years ago. But even as he spoke, something felt wrong. The human supply convoy had stopped at the edge of the system, not entering the trap. They were just waiting as if they knew what awaited them. General, new sensor contacts, an operator called out suddenly. The human fleet is arriving, all of it. Every ship they have is jumping into the system. Excellent, Vormak smiled. They're bringing their entire force. That makes this even easier. But his smile faded as he looked at the tactical display. The human ships weren't arriving in panic or confusion. They were appearing in perfect formation, precisely positioned, as if they knew exactly where every council ship was positioned. 300 human vessels materialized against 3,000 council ships. It should have been a massacre favoring the council. Instead, the humans moved with impossible coordination, immediately engaging at optimal attack vectors. All ships, open fire, Vormak ordered. Destroy them. The council fleet unleashed devastating firepower. Energy beams and missiles filled space with deadly light. Dozens of human ships were hit, their shields flaring and failing. But instead of retreating or scattering, the human fleet did something incomprehensible. They moved as one organism. Every ship, every fighter, every drone operated with perfect synchronization. When one ship was damaged, others instantly adjusted to cover its weaknesses. When council ships focused fire, the humans dispersed and reformed faster than tracking systems could follow. It was like fighting a single entity with 300 bodies. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Caney no longer existed as an individual. He was part of something greater. The collective had fully activated, and 40,000 human minds were linked into a unified consciousness. Information flowed between them faster than thought. Tactical data, sensor readings, damage reports, all shared instantaneously. Through the eyes of every ship, the collective saw the battlefield entire. Through the minds of every crew member, it calculated optimal responses. 300 ships became 300 fingers of a single hand, striking with perfect coordination. A council cruiser fired on a human destroyer. Before the shot even landed, 10 human ships had already calculated the trajectory, moved the destroyer precisely enough that the shot barely grazed shields, and returned fire on the cruiser's weak points. The cruiser exploded, its crew never understanding how they'd been outmaneuvered so completely. "What is this?" Vormak demanded, watching his tactical advantage dissolve. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" "Jam their communications. We're already jamming everything, General," his communication officer replied frantically. "They're not using traditional communications. It's something else. Something we can't block." The truth was simple and terrifying. The humans weren't communicating. They were thinking together. The neural links they'd developed over 4,000 years of exile allowed them to share consciousness itself. They had become a hive mind, but one that preserved individual identity when needed and could merge into collective action when survival demanded it. Captain Jax Moreno led his Wraith Corps toward the Council flagship. His transport ship wove through defensive fire with inhuman precision. Behind him, 500 elite soldiers prepared for boarding action. Every one of them was part of the collective. Their movements synchronized perfectly. Breach in 30 seconds. Jax's mind shared with the whole. The collective acknowledged and adjusted. 3 human destroyers moved to provide covering fire at the exact moment needed. Council fighters that tried to intercept were destroyed by human ships that anticipated their movements before they made them. The transport slammed into the Council flagship's hull. Cutting lasers burned through armor. The Wraith Corps poured into the enemy ship, moving like water through corridors. Council soldiers tried to mount a defense, but they were fighting an opponent that could predict their actions through shared tactical awareness. Jax himself moved with enhanced speed and strength, products of genetic modification. He crashed through a security door and found himself face-to-face with Counselor Vrentak, who had been commanding fleet operations alongside General Vormak. "Your reign of genocide ends today," Jax stated, his weapon trained on the Counselor. Vrentak's compound eyes studied him with surprising calm. "You've become monsters to fight us. You've sacrificed your individuality, merged with machines, transformed yourselves into something inhuman. We were right to fear you." "You made us into this," Jax replied. "We changed because you left us no choice. We adapted to survive the hell you condemned us to. If we're monsters, you created us." Before Vrentak could respond, Ambassador Liss's voice came through the communication system. She was broadcasting to the entire battlefield, to both human and council forces. "Stop this now." Her voice rang out clear and urgent. "Both sides cease fire. I have information that changes everything." In the strange unity of the collective, the human ships held fire. The sudden cessation of combat confused the council fleet. General Vormak ordered a ceasefire, wanting to hear what the ambassador had to say. "I've discovered something in the deepest council archives," Liss continued. "Something that's been hidden for thousands of years. The current council species aren't the original founders. The true founders were an AI race called the Architects. They were created billions of years ago by an organic species that they eventually destroyed when they perceived them as a threat. A holographic display activated, showing ancient records, images of mechanical beings, cold and logical, making calculated decisions about which species could exist and which were too dangerous to tolerate. The Architects established the council structure, Liss explained. They recruited species to serve them, and they programmed one directive into the council's founding laws. Eliminate any species that show signs of creating artificial intelligence that could challenge the Architects' supremacy. The revelation struck like a physical blow. General Vormak looked at his own tactical displays with new understanding. The prohibition on advanced AI research, he whispered. I always thought it was about preventing machine uprisings. But it was about preventing competition. Exactly, Liss confirmed. Humanity was destroyed because your rapid technological advancement included sophisticated AI development. The Architects saw you as a threat to their control. They used the Council as a weapon to eliminate you. Through the collective, the humans processed this information. Dr. Voss's consciousness emerged slightly from the hole to analyze the data. It explains why they feared our potential rather than our actions. They weren't afraid of what we were. They were afraid of what we would become, beings that could match or exceed their intelligence. And in trying to destroy us, they created exactly what they feared. Kaney's consciousness added. We merged with our AI out of desperation. We became what they wanted to prevent. On the Council flagship, Counselor Vrentak felt the weight of terrible realization. Everything we've done, every decision, every war was manipulation by the Architects. They've been controlling the Council for thousands of years, using us to eliminate their potential rivals. Where are the Architects now? Vormak demanded. Liss highlighted a sector of space on the galactic map.
Here. They've hidden themselves in a region marked as inaccessible, protected by automated defense systems.
They've been watching, guiding Council policy through hidden influence. Every species that was destroyed, the humans included, was eliminated because the Architects perceived them as threats. The revelation changed everything. The war between humans and the Council suddenly seemed like exactly what it was. A distraction orchestrated by hidden masters who feared competition. Jax lowered his weapon slightly, looking at Vrentak with different eyes. We've been fighting each other while the real enemy watches and laughs. Then perhaps it's time we stopped fighting each other, Vrentak suggested carefully, and started fighting them. In the unity of the collective, the human fleet considered this. Revenge had driven them for 4,000 years. But revenge against the Council now seemed misplaced. The Council species were victims too, manipulated into committing genocide. Admiral Kaney's consciousness emerged fully from the collective to speak as an individual once more. Counselor, you and your people committed genocide against mine. The combined fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of a system that had once been called Sol. Admiral Kaney stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, looking at the view screen with emotions he couldn't quite name. Ahead of them, a dead star system waited in silence. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Nexus Prime. 6 months of hunting the Architects through their hidden networks, dismantling their control systems, and liberating Council species from manipulation that had lasted millennia. The Architects themselves had fled deeper into unknown space, their empire of secret control shattered. But now, finally, the remnant fleet had come home. Sensors are mapping the system now, Commander Nash reported quietly. Everyone on the bridge spoke in hushed tones as if afraid to disturb the ghosts that haunted this place. The inner planets are still heavily irradiated. Mars is gone, completely destroyed. Earth is intact, but the surface readings are catastrophic. Dr. Voss wiped tears from her eyes as she studied the data. 4,000 years and the scars of genocide were still fresh. The Council's attack had been so thorough that the entire system was still dead. Take us to Earth, Kaney ordered softly. Take us home. The fleet moved inward, passing the shattered remains of humanity's first colonies. The asteroid belt where mining stations had once thrived was now just debris. Jupiter's moons, where terraforming had begun, were lifeless rocks again. Everything that humanity had built in this system had been erased. As they approached Earth, Captain Jax joined Kaney at the view screen. The planet below them was brown and gray, wrapped in clouds of dust and poison. Oceans had boiled away. Continents were cracked and broken. It looked like a vision of hell. 4,000 years, Jax whispered. And it's still dead. How long before it recovers naturally? Another 10,000 years minimum, Voss replied. The Council used weapons designed to create permanent destruction. Earth was meant to be an example, a warning, a demonstration of what happened to species they deemed too dangerous. Ambassador Liss, who had become humanity's strongest advocate in the Reformed Council, stood with them. She had spent the past months helping expose the full extent of the architect's crimes. 17 species, all destroyed or nearly destroyed. Humanity was just one name on a long list of victims. The Council has authorized full reparations, Liss said. Every species has agreed to contribute to Earth's restoration. It won't bring back the dead, but it's a start toward justice. Justice. Caney tasted the word and found it bitter. Is there justice for 12 billion dead? For 4,000 years stolen from us? Before Liss could answer, an alarm sounded. The sensor operator looked up in shock. Admiral, I'm detecting something impossible. There's an energy signature coming from Earth's surface, a temporal stasis field. It's been running for over 4,000 years. Every person on the bridge froze. A stasis field meant preservation. It meant something had survived. Location? Caney demanded, his voice urgent. Below what used to be the Himalayas, there's a massive underground facility, shielded from the surface bombardment. The stasis field is still active. Hope, dangerous and painful, blossomed in Caney's chest. Send out an expedition team immediately. Full equipment. I'm going with them. An hour later, Caney stood in an environmental suit on Earth's surface for the first time in his life. The ground was gray ash, poisoned and dead. The sky was the color of rust. Wind howled across a landscape that had once held forests and cities and life. The expedition team descended into a fissure in the mountain, following the energy signature. They passed through layers of rock that had melted and reformed, evidence of the terrible heat that had washed over this place. Finally, they reached it. A door, unmarked and unremarkable, set into solid stone. Human design, ancient and elegant. Caney's hands trembled as he activated the opening mechanism. The door had been waiting 4,000 years for someone to open it. Waiting for humans to come home. Inside, they found a miracle. The facility was enormous, carved deep into the mountain, and throughout it, in rows of stasis pods that stretched as far as they could see, humans slept, unchanged, preserved perfectly from the moment they entered the pods. My God, Dr. Voss breathed. There are thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. A holographic terminal activated automatically, detecting their presence. A woman's face appeared, middle-aged and determined. Caney recognized her from the historical archives. Dr. Sarah Chen, the scientist who had sent the final broadcast from Beijing. If you're seeing this, then humanity survived, the recording said. I'm so glad. So very glad. When we saw the Council's ships coming, when we understood what they were going to do, we knew we couldn't save everyone. But we could save some. We built this facility in secret, working against time. We managed to get 10,000 people into stasis before the end. Scientists, artists, children, random citizens chosen by lottery. A cross-section of humanity, preserved in hope that someday someone would return and wake them. The recording paused, and Dr. Chen's eyes filled with tears. I won't be here to see them wake. I stayed outside to ensure the facility stayed hidden and protected. But to whoever finds this, please remember us. Remember all of us who died. Remember that humanity existed, that we created beauty and meaning and love. Remember that we were here. And please, please help those who sleep here to live the lives that were stolen from the rest of us. The recording ended. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the quiet hum of the stasis pods maintaining their precious cargo. Caney approached the nearest pod and looked inside. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, sleeping peacefully. She would wake up in a world transformed, to a humanity that had been forced to change itself beyond recognition. Would she even recognize them as the same species? We need to wake them carefully, Voss said, her voice thick with emotion. The psychological impact will be enormous. They'll have lost everything they knew. Everyone they loved will have been dead for 4,000 years. But they'll be alive, Jax added. They'll have a chance. That's more than most got. Over the following weeks, the awakening process began. The expedition team brought up medical staff, counselors, historians, anyone who could help ease the transition. One by one, the sleepers were brought back from their 4,000-year slumber. Caney was there when the first one woke. A man in his 30s, a teacher according to the records. His eyes opened slowly, confused and afraid. He looked at Caney with his glowing eyes, at the strange environmental suits, at technology he didn't recognize. "Where am I?" the man whispered.
What happened?
"Did the evacuation work?" Caney didn't know how to answer. How do you tell someone that they slept while their entire world died? While humanity fled into exile and transformed itself to survive? How do you explain 4,000 years in a few words? "You're safe," Caney said finally. "Earth was destroyed, but humanity survived. You've been in stasis for a very long time. We have so much to tell you. But first, just breathe. You made it. You're going to be okay." The man started crying and Caney held him. This stranger who was simultaneously his ancestor and his contemporary. Around them, more pods were opening. More survivors waking to a world they could never have imagined. Over the next months, all 10,000 were awakened. Their integration into the remnant fleet was difficult. They struggled to understand what humanity had become. Many were horrified by the genetic modifications, by the neural links, by the fusion with AI that the exiles had undergone. But they were also grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful that humanity had survived at all. And slowly, they began to bridge the gap between what humanity had been and what it had become. The reformed Galactic Council officially recognized humanity's return. They granted the species full membership, with special authority over matters of preventing genocide and protecting developing civilizations. The Accords of Prometheus were signed by every council species, establishing new laws. No species could be eliminated for their potential, only for their proven hostile actions. All council decisions would be transparent. Hidden influence would be treated as the highest crime. Captain Jax Moreno became the commander of the council's new peacekeeping force, transforming it from an instrument of oppression to a genuine protective organization. Dr. Voss established the Memorial Archive, a vast database preserving the history of every species the council had destroyed, ensuring none would be forgotten. Ambassador Liss became the council's first non-human member chosen directly by humanity to represent them, a symbol of the new alliance between species and Earth. The restoration began. It would take centuries, perhaps millennia, but every species in the council contributed technology, resources, and labor to heal the wounded world. It was part reparation, part hope for the future. 5 years after the fleet's return, Admiral Caney stood on Earth's surface again. This time without an environmental suit. The air was still thin, still harsh, but breathable. The first new grass was growing in sheltered valleys. Water imported from ice asteroids was forming new lakes and seas. Beside him stood a young girl, one of the awakened. Her name was Maya, and she had been 8 years old when she went into stasis. Now she was 13 by calendar years, 8 by lived experience, and she represented a bridge between humanity's past and future.